Picture this, the Australian outback, a sun-scorched battleground where the unlikely opponents are not nations, but man versus bird. That's right, a national military deployed against a feathery foe, emus. These towering birds, more accustomed to the peaceful life of the wilderness, found themselves at the heart of a conflict that's left historians tickled and birds, well, quite undisturbed. Why would a country declare war on birds, you ask? Well, tuck in your curiosity and let's prepare to unravel the feathered fiasco that sent the Australian government and its armed forces into a flap. It's the 1930s, and in Western Australia, the emus, those great gangly sprinters of the bird world, became the bane of farmers' existence. They were an avian army of 20,000 strong, eating crops and stomping through fields of wheat like they owned the place. Picture the scene, endless waves of hungry emus descending upon farmlands, the very lands soldiers turned farmers had been granted after the trials of the First World War. The farmers, already grappling with the Great Depression, cried out for help, and the government answered, not with scarecrows but with actual soldiers armed with machine guns and a mission to save the harvest by initiating an emu offensive. The stage was set, the players ready. Soldiers, fresh from military endeavors, were dispatched to the front lines of farmland. Their orders were clear: thin out the emu population, restore peace to the Western Australian countryside. You might think this a straightforward task, a technological triumph of man over bird, but the emus were no ordinary adversary. The first battle was soon upon them, a display of military might versus primal instinct. Soldiers attempted to wrangle the avian invaders, to funnel them into a feathered phalanx that could be easily picked off. But the emus were having none of it. With the chaotic grace of a wind-up toy army, they scattered in every conceivable direction, turning soldiers into unwilling participants in a comedy of errors. Let's pause for a moment and visualize this military operation. Here you have soldiers, the epitome of discipline, facing off against creatures that look like they've bounced out of a Dr. Seuss illustration. Emus dashed with a surprising tactical genius, their unpredictable maneuvers throwing the soldiers' plans into disarray. This wasn't a dignified military march. It was more akin to chasing balloons in a hurricane. The bullets flew, but so too did the emus. Not in the air, but across the land, their lanky legs carrying them to safety, their sheer unpredictability proving to be their best armor. And what of the soldiers, you might wonder? Well, the military men soon discovered that an emu could take a hit and keep on ticking, making them an unexpectedly resilient opponent. These birds, armed with nothing but feathers and ferocity, seemed impervious to the soldiers' best efforts. Reports even mentioned emus being struck by gunfire and simply shaking it off, sprinting away to the soldiers' dismay. A remarkable testament to nature's durability and perhaps a commentary on the absurdity of the situation itself. Undeterred, the military planned a more cunning strategy: an ambush at a local dam where a multitude of emus were expected to arrive. With the patience of seasoned hunters, the soldiers lay in wait, the air heavy with anticipation. The emus approached, a sea of feathers against the dusty backdrop, and the soldiers waited for that perfect moment to unleash their firepower. The birds drew closer, and the air was pierced by the crackle of gunfire. For a brief moment, it seemed victory was at hand as a dozen birds fell. But as fate would have it, the guns choked, jammed by the rapid firing, and the feathered tide surged forward once more, scattering in the face of adversity, leaving the soldiers with little to show for their efforts but bewilderment and jammed rifles. And so, the stage was set for what would become one of the most unusual chapters in military history. A battle not of valor and victory, but of bewilderment and birds. The Great Emu War was underway, and the emus were proving to be a formidable force against the Australian military's best-laid plans. Stay tuned as we dive deeper into this bewildering battle, a tale that seems to defy the very notion of war, and leaves us questioning who, if anyone, can truly claim victory when nature and humanity collide in such an unexpected way. As our story reaches its peak, the emus, those unwitting instigators of the war, continue their reign over the Australian outback. Despite the government's repeated attempts to suppress these feathered rebels, the emus seem to dance around every policy, every strategy like ballet dancers evading capture. The birds thrived, their populations burgeoning over the decades, reminding humans time and time again that nature cannot be easily corralled or controlled. It was as though every defeat turned into a rallying cry for the emus, propelling them through the years as a symbol of indomitable spirit and resilience. Now fast forward to the age of the internet, a realm where stories morph into legends. The Great Emu War transcended history books, captivating the digital world with its delightful peculiarity. It sprawled across forums, lit up social media, and inspired art, memes, and hearty debates. The tale was so compelling, so utterly ripe for comedic gold, that it caught the eye of none other than John Cleese. Yes, the emus' tale leapt from the pages of history to the silver screen, their story reimagined through the lens of humor, with Cleese at the helm. It's as if the emus' antics in 1932 were a script waiting to be written, a saga begging to be told. But the fascination with these birds didn't just end with online threads or cinematic endeavors. No, the emus' legacy persisted in reality too. They continued to roam, perhaps with a cheeky nod to the past, across the expanse of Western Australia. They remained a thorn in the side of farmers, a constant reminder of the futility of the war that had aimed to curb their freedom. The government, for all its military might and bureaucratic machinations, found that their emu adversaries were, in fact, a force of nature to be managed, not defeated. And so, as the dust settles on our story, what are we left with? The Great Emu War of 1932 is more than an anecdote of military misadventure. It's a chapter of Australian history that refuses to be forgotten. It's a story that has resonated through the decades, a peculiar, almost pyrrhic conflict that underlines the sometimes comedic interplay between man's intentions and nature's will. This feathered fable serves as a poignant reminder that the best-laid plans of mice and men are oft to go awry. When they stand against the wild's ancient rhythms, the emus, with their spirited sprint across the plains, symbolize life's tenacity, its urge to adapt and persist in the face of challenges. And perhaps that's the lesson here. In the tussle between humanity and the natural world, we are reminded of our own limits, of respect that must be afforded to the wild, and of the enduring truth that, in the end, nature always finds a way to survive, thrive, and occasionally bemuse.